Hey everybody, and welcome back to Planet Coaster. I'm still not entirely used to how the whole YouTube live streaming works. I'm just used to Twitch and just pressing the live button on OBS instead of also having to do it on the dashboard of YouTube. So, I don't know, that's maybe why it was quiet for a while. Sorry about that. Anyway, welcome back to Jägerhorn. Today is going to be the last day that I'm opening this park file, probably ever. Maybe, we'll see, who knows. I just wanted to do one last, I wanted to do one last video or live stream, depending what I felt like doing, where I just showed it off because I felt like there was still a bunch of stuff that I wanted to talk about, and there was a bunch of stuff that I did between episode 16 and the final video, which I didn't get to show off because I thought it wouldn't really work for an episode, but it's still stuff that I thought was worth talking about. Be it the fact that I went through the whole coaster and added nighttime lights everywhere. I fixed up the layouts in certain parts, and I just generally filled up some of the areas which were empty and unthemed, even still during the last episode. I think it could also be interesting to look at the coaster from almost a sort of Planet Coaster College perspective. Because I think it's an interesting coaster to look into. There were a bunch of ideas that I had regarding this coaster to maybe make a Planet Coaster College video out of. Primarily the idea of forced perspective, which I think is the most important thing, at least for me personally, throughout this build. So that's something that I want to talk about as well. So maybe some tips and tricks along the way will come back, as well as, I don't know, probably a healthy dose of self-criticism as well. We'll see about that. Let me move this out of the way. So yeah, here's Jägerhorn. I'm actually gonna unpause the video because it was paused the whole time. Now I will need to say, I'm sorry about the terrible frame rates that this live stream is probably going to have, which isn't going to be entirely down to OBS. It's really just going to be down to the game, because this park file is extremely laggy, at least on my computer. I don't really have the best computer, and there's just so much in this park file. So even though a cheat engine and time-lapsed footage might make it look like it's doing alright, it really isn't. This thing is melting my computer, and as you can see, the frame rate is not that great, but I'm afraid I can't really do much about that. There are also just certain limits to the game, I suppose, and it's not even that bad, you know, now that the camera is standing still, but as soon as I start moving the camera and ride the coaster, I think it's gonna be really annoying. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind, I suppose. So here's Jägerhorn, the full map, as you can also see yourself if you download it on the workshop. You know what I should actually do? I should go ahead and just turn off all of the effects of... Wait, I already did? Okay. I thought I had a healthy dose of reshade at this point, but apparently I didn't. Okay, I'm just gonna leave that on a little bit of ambient occlusion. I really can't fix up the frame rate much more. Maybe this tanks it a little bit, but it's not like there's a lot of reshade actually on it right now. So yeah. I don't think I'll need to do a POV, because there's a pretty good POV in the video already. First, I kind of want to go over some of the things which I ended up doing after episode 16. So for once, I actually placed lights alongside the entire rail, and some of these are just really simple, like some really small lanterns around here on the fence. I think I even put down, yeah, like one extra light over here. This whole lift hill over here has a bunch of extra lights. Basically, I just wanted to make sure that almost along the entire layout there would be lights, especially among the most interesting bits, like the fence here and some of the outermost curves. And I should probably switch to nighttime mode to show that off a little bit, because I didn't really get to show off the nighttime look of this coaster too much in the cinematic video, but I definitely tried to make it work at night as well. So there's some very basic lighting. I have to say, it's not that great. It's really, really basic, but most of the track, at least the most interesting bits, are lit up. And all of the buildings have at least some form of spotlights going on as well. Oh yeah, and also I should say, if you have any questions or anything that you want me to show off, just drop it in the chat and I'll look at it. So for this question, I'm living in Brussels at the moment, but I'm from the Netherlands. I get that this is sometimes a bit of a source of confusion, but yeah, that's basically where we're at now, right now. So yeah, I actually really like this coaster a lot more with the lights. I don't know why it took me so long to finally add lights to some sections. There were always some lights, but they were mostly just decorative. I didn't really think about nighttime before. So I went back a few weeks ago and just added all of these lights, which I think helps out a ton in making this coaster look a bit better. And especially some scenes I think work really well at night, and I'm kind of wondering why I didn't include them during the cinematic video, like this area here. Because it looks pretty cool, I think. And the same goes for the buildings, I guess, even at night, especially the station building, I think looks kind of cool. One thing that I always try to keep in mind when I'm doing lighting, and trust me, I kind of did a very poor and rushed lighting job on a lot of this, but something that I always like to keep in mind is to show off the lights as much as possible. Well, not really as much as possible, but at least make sure that every light is physically there and visible, but at the same time a little bit hidden. So there's a spotlight here, for instance, shining through the fence, which is the light for the station. A lot of people, I think, will sink their lights into the ground or into scenery pieces to make them invisible. But I think just for realism purposes, it would make a bit more sense to have it light up from just across the path or something like that. How many hours did this take you? Honestly, I have no idea. The videos themselves, I think, if you add up all of the time lapses together, it's somewhere between 60 and 80 hours. But then there's a lot of me also just going around the park outside of the episodes, trying to fiddle with things, slightly moving stuff. Like, I spent a lot of time just grabbing single trees and moving them around until I was happy with the exact placement of the trees. Like, I know I was really trying to tinker with the placement of this tree because I didn't want it to break any sight lines, but at the same time I wanted to have a tree there. So things like that, I think, ended up taking a lot of time, which you don't really end up seeing in the videos. Also, trying to tinker with what the layout should be, I think, was the most difficult bit. What I ended up doing was painting a general layout of the park on the ground with ground textures. So I actually painted the layout of the coaster on the ground with just textures before I actually put the real coaster track in. But I think things like that mostly ended up taking a lot of time. So I don't really have a good estimate, but I definitely spent over 100 hours on this, which, to be honest, spread out over 2 years, really shows that I was working on this every now and then. Like, I definitely wasn't continually working on this. It was just an hour or a few every now and then. I didn't end up putting any lights on the roof, actually, because I didn't really find a good way to put lights there. Maybe it would look a bit better, but I think it looks alright with no lights on the roof. I did put a light, actually a bunch of lights on the clock tower, so there is a bit of attention to that. But the roof is entirely dark. My favorite build in Planet Coaster, in total, I would honestly probably say Jägerhorn. That's just... I find it really difficult. I think my favorite build in Planet Coaster is Jägerhorn. It's the build that, when I look at it, I find the least amount of things that I feel like don't work. Even though it's not the most over-the-top coaster, it's the one where I put the most amount of thought into everything, I think. And it's the one where I'm generally the most happy with it. But my favorite video of Planet Coaster on my channel, I think, is still Planet Coaster. The Planet Coaster, which is really weird to talk about, but the one where I just basically built a small planet and had a coaster go around it. It's just something about the simplicity of that thing, because I only built it in 2 days, but still it works out really well, I think, and just makes for this really kind of unique coaster that also only works in video. Like, it looks terrible in game, but I thought the video for that did turn out really cool. So I don't know, despite the fact that I basically put in 0 time into it and I made it in 2 days, I think that's my favorite video, but my favorite overall project to look around in is probably Jägerhorn. Also, I just noticed is this incomplete? Oh no, wait. No, I did have that. Right. I just wondered if I was forgetting some supports here. I remembered putting some supports underneath that coaster track. I just couldn't see it. But yeah, it's there. Alright, so that's good. Actually, underneath this bridge there is pretty much no scenery, so that's something to try and not pay any attention to. Although I also kind of feel like that's realistic, because as a guest you will barely really see that space. It's really just a bit of rock work underneath the bridge. Are you going to make another coaster? And if so, what kind of coaster will it be? Well, I have to say, I don't know if I'm gonna start another coaster in Planet Coaster in the foreseeable future. I'm still pretty busy with Parkitect and Planet Zoo. Especially Planet Zoo coming out soon, I want to keep some time free for. And I also want to get back into City Skylines, and I don't think I can juggle all of that and working on a coaster in Planet Coaster. But I do want to finish the ski resorts, and there will probably be some more episodes of Stalivar as well. Even though Rudy and I have both been kind of procrastinating on it, and Operateur is the only one at this point who's actually trying to get us to actually be productive. But something of that will definitely come as well. What's the feeling of building another coaster from zero? Happy, sad, or bored? I feel like the start of building something new is actually the most fun, because then you can really still experiment with things. And for me personally, it's also the most it's also the most interesting, because you're completely free to do whatever you feel like, and you don't feel too much of a burden to build to I don't know, make something nice. Because for Jägerhorn, I found it more and more difficult to add stuff to it, because I put so much thought into the first things that I built, that everything that I added to it, I was really trying to make sure that it fit in and that it didn't ruin what was already there. And especially as it became more and more complete, you really just try and complete the puzzle, and for me at least, it becomes harder and harder to make things fit in. Whereas if you're starting something new, you can just kind of do whatever you feel like doing. Do I still like playing Parkitect? Oh yeah, I love it. I definitely want to finish the campaign. It just takes a lot of time. How did you get the timing for the coaster? So the timing is actually something really interesting to talk about. I think I'm going to go back to daytime at this point, because we've seen the coaster enough at night, I think. But yeah, the timing I think was really interesting, because the timing is actually slightly off, which... Oh wow, it is actually completely off if you look at that there. But yeah, the thing, I think, is every 3 trains, there will be 2 trains that synchronize and 1 train that doesn't. And this should have just been the 1 train that didn't sync. I'm just gonna skip ahead and see if we can find the next 2 trains on the drop. But yeah, I couldn't get it to synchronize perfectly. And this is also something that you see in the POV, because on the first drop in the POV video, it doesn't sync with the other train, and then on the second drop it does. Okay, the sync is actually completely off. Never mind, I think that just kind of got offset after a long time of running this park. But yeah, no, the way I basically just did it is I kept changing the minimum waiting time, and it just took a lot of trial and error until it synchronized a few times. I was actually able to set it up so that it synchronizes every single time, which, as you can see, it's completely off now, because either this one's first or that one's first. But I was able to get it right, but then I would have to run 4 trains. And the issue with that is that there would always be a train waiting on this part of the brake run, and then usually also a train on this part of the brake run, which was terrible. And I'd rather, I don't know, sacrifice a little bit of synchronization to make the trains actually continuously run and never force people to wait at any point in the track. Why didn't you add a chairlift? I just felt like I couldn't really fit in one without ruining what's already there here, I guess. Yeah, I really couldn't find a place to fit in a chairlift. I guess you could maybe have one go above this section, but then at that point you're just kind of going over everything and not really interacting with it in a meaningful way. So no, I didn't end up adding one. I think if I wanted to add one, I would have tried to include that in the general plan for the layout from the get-go. What are you most looking forward to in Planet Zoo? Basically the interaction of the animals with the scenery. I think this is something that I've already said quite a few times, so I'll keep it brief, but I really love the fact that animals interact with everything you build. It just makes everything feel that much more real and that much more solid. So that's really my favorite thing about the game. I knew pretty much that they were going to get the models of the animals right. Frontiers is really good at that. And they're just good at making games feel or look good in general, I think. I was just not sure if it was going to work out as well from a gameplay perspective. But with how the animals seem to interact with scenery, that's, I think, perfectly fine. Multiple thefts have occurred. There are no security guards. Whatever. I'm not too concerned about that. How much time do you think you've spent on this coaster in total? Not entirely sure, but definitely somewhere upwards of 100 hours. But, you know, it's spread out over 2.5 years almost. So it's really kind of on and off. How many pieces are there in this park? I actually don't know. I tried to measure that recently by just multi-selecting the entire park and my game crashed. And I'm really afraid to do that again, especially on stream. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to try to measure it. But I think it's not too terrible. The biggest problems with piece counts are just the buildings with custom roofs, like this station building. If I try to click on this, you could see my game is freezing for a bit. Yeah, that's nearly 15,000 pieces. The church is definitely less bad, but also... oh, this thing is blueprintable. Did I upload this on the workshop? I should probably try. I know this thing is blueprintable because I put it on the workshop. Yeah, 3,000. So yeah, it's not even that bad, and it's a pretty small park, but there are a lot of very small pieces everywhere. Would I make a POV of the carousel? No, sorry. But I will finish the ski resort, yeah. I'm gonna see when I get some time to work on that again, because I haven't in a while, but I definitely want to finish it. Some tips for a beginner in Planet Coaster. I definitely want to get to some tips, especially related to this coaster. But my general tip that I like to give people is to look for inspiration in real-life theme parks. I know a lot of theme parks are available on Google Maps in 3D, and you've got street view images. Google Images can also help, or the roller coaster database, rcdb.com. But yeah, just look at stuff is usually what I do, and sometimes you just get inspired by something. Sometimes you really like a certain picture or a certain part of a park, and I don't know, that can be a really good starting point. You could even try to recreate something which, you know, isn't quite as creatively interesting, but I think making recreations is a good way to get to learn how parks and roller coasters are put together in real life, but also in Planet Coaster, because it can be a way to try and force yourself to use the pieces in a creative way and, you know, get to know the game a bit more. So yeah, that's something that I think is a good way to get started. Oh, hi Joshua. How about I finish supporting Gambits and theming the Station Plaza area, and you can build a surrounding area like a Mountain Lodge area. Sounds good, honestly, yeah. Now, something that I also thought would be cool to talk about is forced perspective. I was considering making a Planet Coaster College video about this, but it's a really hard kind of topic to do a tutorial video about, just because it's not really something you build or do. It's just something to try and keep in mind while you come up with whatever it is that you're coming up with. And I used some forced perspective ideas in a bunch of things in this park. I think the most interesting and most notable use of forced perspective is in the church on top of the hill. I tried to make this hill look as large as possible, while in reality the hill is actually kind of tiny. And I think the church plays a pretty important role in that, especially from this front perspective, or this perspective especially, which I think worked out really well. As you can probably tell, because I made this perspective a picture in many thumbnails. But yeah, the church is actually really small, and it's built on a much smaller scale than the actual in-game grid. Even though it looks like it, this building is absolutely tiny, and I also tried to make use of some of the smaller pieces in the game. So while the tower, for instance, might look like it's made out of a complete, 4 meter by 4 meter wall set, if I get some full walls, and this is going to take a while because the game is lagging, But yeah, if I get a full wall, as you can see, it's actually much bigger than the tower is. So if it were to be made out of actual wall sets, it would be this large. So this really kind of shows you just how tiny the church tower is. One interesting way also to illustrate that a bit is if you just copy over this entire building and put it next to the station building. And dear God, my game is protesting at me doing this, so I'm just going to pause it for a second. But yeah, if you put it down next to here, you can see that the tower of the church is actually tiny. It's really small, but just the fact that guests can't really come close to it, I think hides the fact that the church is really small and really not built to actual human scale. And this is a trick that's stolen straight out of Disney parks. A lot of Disney parks will do this. Mostly the castles are very famous for having tiny upper floors, or sometimes when they do put a building on rockwork, they'll also just make it a really small miniature. So yeah, there's that. What video card do I have? The GTX 970, which is not really handling this park too well, I'm afraid. So I don't know, if you want to run this park with better FPS, definitely get a better video card, but this is all I could afford when I bought it. But yeah, it's also something to keep in mind that, you know, just the church being small doesn't really make the forced perspective work by itself. Something that I tried doing to make this work a bit better is try and keep the guests far away from the church. And it's also just in the general landscaping. So in this case, for instance, I wanted to make this hill look as large as possible. So I have this valley just in front of the hill, between the path and the hill. So it seems like the hill rises a little bit more, just because you have this little valley down here, and it just doesn't, you know, start going up instantly. And just the overall layering, I think, works in that regard as well. You might be able to notice that I keep my trees on top of the hill really small. They're all kind of sunken into the ground. Whereas if you go down here, you definitely see some larger trees. There are just some full trees here and there. So just the fact that everything kind of progressively gets smaller as you get up the hill is part of what makes the church illusion work a bit better, I think, as well. So yeah, this is also why I struggled to come up with an idea of how to make a Planet Coaster College video about it. Forced perspective isn't really something that you can build or instantly put into place. It relates to pretty much everything, which makes it hard to use. You kind of have to plan it beforehand. In this case, also, I think just the fact that you have the curve of the track in the foreground and then the church in the background, I think just the overall composition of this with these sort of like diagonal lines in this direction looks kind of cool. Like, this is definitely the general shot that I'm most happy with. But the fact that you have this foreground here makes the church seem a bit more believably human-sized as well. Oh wow, somebody just loaded up the save and apparently has 60 FPS. So yeah, my computer is just terrible. Hi Matt. What game got you hooked on this genre? It's hard to say. I guess it could be Roller Coaster Tycoon when I was younger, but it also definitely could be Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. The thing that really got me into creatively building stuff was Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 with the custom scenery community. I just watched a lot of videos on YouTube when I was younger of Moonkin for the Win or Stratalas, Murph the Engineer. All of those people uploaded roller coasters back in 2007, 8, 9. And that basically inspired me to get into the game. That's how I got into the custom scenery community of Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. And then once Planet Coaster came out, I just sort of naturally rolled into this community as well. With, I gotta say, the big, advantage of having that Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 community knowledge and experience in my back pocket, because I have to be honest, like everything I do, I owe a lot of it up to the Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 community, which back in the day was really centered around forums, and lots of people gave me so much feedback and tips that really helped me become better at that game, which I think helped a lot in my Planet Coaster stuff as well. I don't think I would be where I am right now without the amazing Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 community. Which for a large part is still on Planet Coaster as well. Like, the whole of Bro Nation is basically old Shy Guys World forums of the Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 community. Also, now there are some other interesting bits of forced perspective on this, which are a bit more obvious, I think. This building has progressively lower floors. In fact, the bottom floor is way too large. It's 4 meters, yeah, just a full wall, so it's actually ridiculously big, kind of out of scale. Then the middle floor here is much more of a realistic scale. I think if I show it like this, you can probably tell that it's actually a lot smaller. Maybe I should just get a full wall piece just to be able to tell just how tall the different floors are. This is a 4 meter wall. Yeah, this is about 4 meters. This one's a little bit shorter, and then once you get up to the top floor, if I raise this to the same height, it just starts sticking out like crazy. Like, the top floor of this building is tiny, although I think you can still probably fit a human in there, just because the roof is pitched. But yeah, that's just a general way of making this building seem like a 3-story building, even though in reality it's more like a 2.5-story building. Just basic Disney Main Street kind of forced perspective, I think. Oh, and yeah, SimCity 3000 is also awesome. That definitely was one of my favorite creative games back in the day as well. Also, if we go to the back here, there's something that I never really showed off before, but I finished the queue of the flat ride. It's really not that great. We just have this weird little pavilion here at the back. I got the pavilion in the back. And yeah, it's really not that nice. I tried experimenting a lot with different buildings to fit in here, but nothing really worked. It was all a bit over the top. I didn't want to have a full complete building, but I also wanted to have something which made this entrance stick out a bit more. Now that I think about it, I probably should have put a sign here, because this is a bit too anonymous. Oh well, that's basically how I ended up finishing this part of the park. Alright, see you later, Jonathan. What game is more attractive in building for you? Planet Coaster, City Skylines, Planet Zoo, or others? It's really hard to compare, I think. I like Planet Coaster and, well, Planet Zoo to a similar degree, I think, most because you just get so much freedom in terms of what things look like. Like, every little piece, every shingle of this roof was basically placed by me. Like, everything is customizable. So you have a lot of control over how things look. You have that less so with City Skylines, but I think that's also fair. It's on a much larger scale. Like, on City Skylines, you can actually build things on a large scale, whereas with this, I spent 2 years just on this little park. So that's completely different, I think. Also, City Skylines for me is not just interesting from an aesthetics point of view, which Planet Coaster and Planet Zoo are, I guess. But I'm also just really interested in urbanism, urban mobility, sustainability, these kinds of things in general in real life. So City Skylines is kind of a playground for me as well, to just play with these general urban issues in kind of a digital god mode sandbox, where you don't have to worry about politics or social issues that real life cities come with. Now, back to the topic of forced perspective for just a second, I think. The quote-unquote main street of Jägerhorn has the same idea of many Disney main streets. You can tell that the second floors are actually really small. This one has a tiny second floor, which a person would definitely not be able to fit on. This one has a much larger second floor, actually, or first floor. Is that like a British American thing? I always forget. But anyway, this floor right here, the middle one, is much larger than this one, but I also wanted to have this building be much bigger in general, because this is kind of the center point of the general street. And then this building again has a tiny floor here, which is really small, but just kind of helps to sell it as a 2-story building. I also just generally looked for some variety in these buildings in general. These buildings are totally all over the place, by the way. This one's completely different style. They're all kind of a bit of experimentation, so it's a bit of a messy street. It's not my favorite part of Jägerhorn, but at least it was fun to experiment with these different styles, I think. And I think also this building here with the chief beef is just very kind of standard Tyrolean or Swiss fare, just with a bit more detail on it, I think. In City Skylines, you have a city with 50,000 people and 30 transport lines. I have actually no idea what's wrong with that. I have to also admit my City Skylines in-game knowledge is not that great. So there's a bunch of bugs that I honestly don't know about. I've never heard about that issue before. How do you decide what is going to go where in your park and what scenery you're going to build? My biggest problem is that I have ideas but can't translate it into the game. This is definitely something I struggle with a lot as well. And for some reason, I always return to paper and try to sketch things, but even when I try to sketch things down, I really can't get it right. So honestly, I just tinker about in the game, just generally building stuff with no detail whatsoever, just trying to figure out a composition and layout. And when I'm happy with it, I just start building it. So for the station, for instance, for Jägerhorn, I know I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how I wanted to do this. I didn't just instantly start building this and start detailing it. I at first just started experimenting with wall pieces and roof pieces in the game, just randomly putting them in different shapes and positions, trying to figure out how I wanted it to look like. Then eventually I came up with a sort of composition, took a picture of that, and then used that as a guideline to know what I wanted to do when I was building the full building. So that's how I approached that. And then for the park as a whole, I just used terrain textures to try and mark where I wanted certain things to go, like the coaster track, buildings, things like that, and then try to visualize a bit what it would look like, just to have an overall idea and try help put my thoughts into something real. So maybe this is a bit different for everybody as well, but this is how it works for me. In English, the first floor is the ground floor. I think there might be some differences, yeah. Yeah, it's like a British-American difference, I think. Either way, as long as we all just kind of try to maybe emphasize a bit what we mean exactly, it should be all fine. Ski Resort is definitely still happening. I want to finish it. I've just been too busy with some other stuff recently, but I do want to finish the Ski Resort. So I guess that also answers the question of whether I want to do more Planko in the coming weeks. I've got another standalone video coming up as well besides the Ski Resort, which is a really strange video that I don't want to spoil anything about because I think it'll be the best video if I just drop that randomly with no context whatsoever. But I will drop a random standalone Planet Coaster project sometime soon as well. Foliage, that's a good point actually. Give us a ride. I'll do a POV soon. Although I have to say, not too sure if it's going to look very good in this frame rate. But yeah, also, finally, one interesting note. This building is very crappy, I know. I actually redid this building because I lost progress on it and I couldn't care about it when I redid it. And I even forgot to give this dormer a roof. So this dormer is very facade-y, which I guess for a theme park sort of works. But in the original version, there was actually a roof connecting this dormer to the actual roof of the building. But nowadays, yeah, no, this is just a 2D cutout of a dormer. That's something that I definitely kind of regret about this. Although, in the end, we do have a proper backstage setting for these buildings, which even though it's not that great and it doesn't matter that much, I do like having that in the back, just to be able to pretend like this is a real park and there could be, you know, some sort of backstage setup behind all of this. Also, yeah, this was an attempt to put in some of the different architectural styles that you find throughout the Alps. So this is a Baroque building that you'll very commonly find in mountain towns in the city centers, around the squares. They often have painted decorations on the building, so I try to recreate that a little bit with some of these Christmas decorations. This building is a very typical farmhouse style, except with a lot of extra decoration on it. This is a timber work building that you'll also find more in urban centers. And then this is actually all just one big interconnected Swiss looking facade, which was mainly inspired by the Swiss section in Europa Park. So that's that. And then of course there's the Biergarten here as well, which I didn't really even show off in the final video. I thought it's not that nice, but I wanted to have it from a realistic standpoint in this park because you need some area to sit down and have food and things like that. And even if this Biergarten itself is not the best, I think if my game is not going to freeze, there we go, you do have a really cool view of the park and the coaster from here. Read this loud. Oh, well, I'm sorry about that. In America, the floor that has the main entrance is the first floor. If there's a floor underneath that, it's ground level. Ah, that's interesting. Alright. So, I guess I'm just gonna use first floor for ground floor then, and second floor for this. In Dutch is weird as well, because like the word verdieping, which is the Dutch word for floor, it feels like literally translates to something like the deepening. Like it sounds like you're going down, but in reality it goes up, and like the first floor is the tweede verdieping, I think. Actually, I'm not even sure anymore. Forget about it. There's another interesting example of forced perspective that I still wanted to show off before I moved on, and it's super accidental, but I think it works out really well, and it's this bridge here. And if you stand over here on the path, it's a very obvious sight line. I think the sight lines are, along with forced perspective, and well, probably in combination, some of the most important things in Jägerhorn. I spent a lot of time just walking on the paths, trying to figure out where things should be placed. And this is like one of those obvious sight lines. And this bridge works out really well because it looks like the station's kind of far away. You know, you've got the bridge here and you've got 4 arches leading to the station. But in reality, the bridge is on an incline. So if you're looking from the path, you can't really tell that the bridge is on an incline, or on an incline. But in reality, it just kind of looks like the station is further away than it actually is. So this was honestly entirely accidental, but I think it works out really well as a sort of forced perspective. And when you're on the coaster, I think the coaster is going way too fast to notice that the bridge is kind of clunky, especially because you're going over this airtime hill, so you're really too busy to pay attention to the fact that this bridge is weird. So yeah, I think this is honestly probably my favorite example for forced perspective. I'm not sure if any theme parks have done this in real life with the bridge, you know, trying to change the size of the bridge as you go further away to make the bridge seem larger than it actually is. But it works out really well in this case, I think. So yeah, I'm happy with that, but I can't take any credit for it. That was just a lucky stroke of genius, I guess. But yeah, those are really the main interesting bits of forced perspective. I think the most interesting sight lines and the most important sight lines are, well, for one, this one looking out from the path over the coaster. Definitely this one as well. This very wide section of path here where I tried to make the coaster look as good as possible from this perspective, and then a bunch of further perspectives as well. I tried to keep some clearings in between the trees to make sure that from here you can see the station and the tower of the church, and the same goes for here. If you just kind of get it right, you can see all of the buildings are lining up. So if you're walking here, in fact, if this were a section of a real life park, then you'd be coming in here and well, either you're on this path and this would be your opening to the coaster, or you're what is this camera doing here? Or you're coming down from this path, in which case, you know, you can see all of the buildings just in the background like this, which I think works really well. So the placement of the trees and everything is just kind of meticulously done to make sure that everything is revealed when you walk into the area that this would be in. And I guess the same goes for this other path where you can enter the section of the park from, because then you have the church right in front of you, and just around the corner the station roof is peeking in here, which partly disappears because the shingle pieces disappear really quickly, which is kind of an issue. If I zoom out, you can see the shingle pieces disappearing. I put a bunch of red plank pieces underneath the roof just to make sure that the roof doesn't completely disappear. But yeah, don't zoom out too much or the roof disappears. It's a little bit annoying. Also, did I accidentally remove a piece of the roof here? I did. This used to be here. What did I do? Oh. Well, that's not great. Oh well. Forget about it. I don't know if that occurred in the final video as well. I didn't notice it, at least. Maybe that's just something I messed up on this save. Something I messed up on this save as well is this little post is here. It's a bit of a mistake. That's a post that I used, I think, to make the roof symmetrical, but I don't know why the wooden post is still here. It didn't pop up in the cinematic video, at least. I removed it there, but apparently I didn't remember to save that save file. What is your favorite type of coaster in Planet Coaster? That's really difficult. Let me actually check the menu for a second. Can you create a park building with just the standard pieces and no DLC? If you're interested in that kind of stuff, I can actually recommend Rudy's Planet Raw series, where he tried to see how the raw version of Planet Coaster fares nowadays. But personally, I'm not too interested in that. No, I don't think I'll be trying that anytime soon. Although I can definitely see why it would be a good exercise, because this game has gotten really expensive with all of the extra DLC and things. So yeah. Also, sorry I didn't say hi yet, but hi Commander Real War. The coaster named after me. Yeah, that would be a good choice, I guess, for my favorite coaster. It is definitely one of my favorite coasters in real life, but I think my favorite coaster is gonna have to be the Topper Trek RMC. I think that's just the coaster that they made the best, although I would put the hybrid cars on it. But just when it comes down to the track design and everything, and the fact that it's in the game at all, I'm really happy they added the Topper Track coaster in the game. I also think that the Mac launched coaster is pretty great, even though I never actually built anything with it. And yeah, the looping shuttle coaster is actually really nice. They did a good job on that as well. The Anubis. What is the Anubis again? There's a graveyard in one of the career parks that has your name on a grave. I think that should be the Western Park, right? With the lake in the middle with a giant roller coaster with a big tower in the middle of the island in the lake. I think that's the park. Either way, it's a park that was made by a bunch of community managers. So aside from me, I can remember that Rudy also worked on it, as well as Adfo. I hope I didn't forget anybody else. It's been a long time, but yeah. A bunch of people from the community worked on the different sections of that career map. And they ended up adding our names to the graves, which is a bit, I don't know, a bit of a bad omen, I suppose, but also really cool. I tend to forget about that because I don't think I ever made a video about that map. But yeah, I made the coaster and the building on the island in the middle of the lake, in the middle of the map, so that's why my name is on one of the graves. Oh, it's the Jovanola Hyper. Ah, fair enough. Well, it's well made. I gotta give it that, but that'll never be my favorite coaster on basis that Jovanola Hypers are a bit lame. Although I also think that they are overhated. They're not as bad as people say they are, I think. I think Goliath is pretty fun. It doesn't have too much airtime, but some really good positive Gs, and it's not rough or anything, so it's pretty enjoyable. Make Sadra, please. I have to be honest, I don't really like doing recreations, so I think I'll pass that on to other people. Maybe Operator is gonna do it one day. Which has been your most favorite project to build in Planet Coaster? That's difficult. For one, I think it's not actually gonna be Jägerhorn because it's been so challenging to try and build this thing. I think that's probably also Planet Coaster, as in Planet Coaster, Planet Coaster. It's just really fun to try and experiment with how to make that thing look like it's on a real planet. And the whole time I was basically thinking to myself, just wait until people see this thing. I was just looking forward to drop that thing. The moment I came up with the idea, I was just pretty much happy with it. So yeah, I think that was my most enjoyable coaster to build. Can you build a gondola on this live stream? I have to say, I'm not going to build anything on this live stream. I just want to showcase Jägerhorn, so I'll stick to that. I had some notes here about stuff that I also wanted to do and talk about. Just give me a second. Oh, yeah, right. I still need to do a POV. and maybe some foliage notes and other notes on detailing this coaster or stuff that I haven't shown off. Speaking of which, oh yeah. Yeah, I'm just here to flex. You're right. No, I was thinking that I could make a real-time showcase video, but, you know, for one, that is more effort than doing a live stream, so, you know, screw that. But also I figured might as well make a live stream out of it so people can ask questions and other stuff and actually respond to comments. Because this will be the last time that I'm showing this, and I don't know, this is the project that I'm probably most proud of in the game, so I just want to spend as much time trying to talk about this thing as I can until it becomes really obnoxious, I guess is what I'm trying to say. What was I doing? Oh yeah, right. I did change the track a little bit. I know I actually complained about the track having way too many lateral Gs in the final episode. And I did find out also that the majority of the track is actually fine. It was mostly this curve and the other curve going around the transfer track, which was bad. So how I ended up settling this, oh god, my game is really struggling trying to render this. How I ended up settling this was just twisting the track a bit and then putting these extra supports in place. There are some lights on this as well to support that track. So it doesn't look terrible, but it does look a bit wonky. And also I have to say this is why the catwalk is so far removed from the track for this section, because I honestly couldn't bother to redo the catwalk, because that was definitely one of the most annoying thing about this whole project, just the fact that the catwalk is made out of hundreds and hundreds of upside down fountains. It's kind of a chore to do that. So I kept the catwalk the same. I mean, do you even call it a catwalk at this point? It's really just some concrete next to the track. But yeah, I did the same on this side, just rotated the banking a little bit more, and then put some wooden stuff underneath it to support it, which is also weird because now you have a double layer of wooden planks, but I think it works alright, and especially on the POV you don't notice it too much. I'm not sure how long this live stream is going to last for, just until I run out of things to talk about, or until you guys run out of things to ask questions about, I suppose. If you were ever going to expand this park, which you aren't, what type of expansion would you make? Well, the idea behind Jägerhorn has always been that it's one themed land inside a park with a lot of different themed lands. It could be probably a Disney style park because it is very heavily themed and expensive, but maybe even something like Fantasialand or so if they had more space to actually build things. So if I were to expand this, I would really just make Jägerhorn one section of the park and move on to a different themed land, be it something Asian or a different European country or something completely different like African or South American, which are themes that I haven't done much at all. Should probably do more. But yeah, that would probably be what I would do with this if it weren't for the fact that I want to end it here. Well, for one, because it's in this corner of the map. If this were really a part of a larger park, it would definitely be over here somewhere. But also, as you can see, the frame rate is absolutely terrible, even when the game is paused. And I had to build like this, so one of the most annoying things also when you're building a park is that the longer you're building, the more laggy the game gets, and you sort of get used to it. I don't think you need a really great frame rate in games like this, but at the same time, when you start a new park and it's 60 FPS again, it's just so refreshing to finally not have to deal with the lag anymore. So yeah. But yeah, if I were to make expansions, I would make different themed areas, each with their own headliner attraction, and make it, you know, based on a different region in the world. Probably around Jägerhorn, different European countries, and then other sections of the park would be different continents. Something like Eurasia Gardens, maybe, or Fantasy Valley. Would you make a small village in Planet Coaster if you had the time, or have the time? I don't think so, but I would love to try building a city in Planet Coaster. I did one in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, which, don't look it up, it's really bad, but I really like the idea of building a city in this game because you can absolutely control everything from the look of the street lights on the street to the foliage of the balconies and the buildings, which gives you so much more minute detail control than City Skylines does. But at the same time, it would be really hard to pull off. How is the speed on the coaster always decent? If I make a mine train, it is always very slow. I'm not sure. I think I meddled with the friction. It's 0.9 or so, I think. No. Okay, the friction multiplier is actually untouched. Interesting. I thought I moved that to like 0.9. Maybe that is why the synchronization is off. Hold on. Let me experiment with something here. Yeah. This save, for some reason, it didn't save my synchronization, like the minimum waiting time and things like that. Oh no, it did. Miniature, minimum departure arrival. Whatever the case, for some reason synchronization in this save is messed up, so it's not synchronized as it is in the video. But I think I had friction multiplier 0.9, could be 1 as well. But even on 1, it runs fine. But I have to say, mine trains just run out of their kinetic energy. Not that quickly, but they definitely do pretty quickly. So even though you can't really tell too much because none of the track is really close to each other, you lose a lot of height between the top of this lift hill and then the bottom of this lift hill. So in this case, the lift hill is really tall, and then the next tallest point of the whole layout is this bridge, which as you can see is already much lower. And then from there going forward, the tallest point is this hill, which is quite a bit lower than this hill, which is quite a bit lower. Like you can really tell that the layout is getting lower and lower very quickly. And by the time that you almost wind up back at the second lift hill, I also had to dig this valley because you really have to go below normal ground level because otherwise the train would be way too slow. So yeah, the way I avoided losing speed was just keeping it close to the ground and having it continuously going lower and lower until you hit the next lift hill. Oh, hi, Lady Designer. Yeah, it is very weird to see a blue menu again. It's also a bit annoying to see this game again because Planet Zoo keeps making me realize just how bad Planet Coaster looks in comparison. Not because Planet Coaster looks necessarily terrible, but Planet Zoo just looks way too good. We do stand Silver City in this house, yes. Also, hi Operateur. What are my hopes for Max and Moritz in the Efteling, since its theme is going to be similar to yours? I think it's going to be beautiful. I have really high hopes for the theming, but I have to be honest, I'm still disappointed that they are removing Bob for it. I totally understand it, but Max and Morris is definitely not going to be as fun of a coaster for me. But I understand it because Bob isn't supported by the manufacturer anymore, and they did need that, bridging coaster for kids, because at the moment they don't really have a good kiddie coaster, so I think it totally makes sense. It looks great. I think they're going to pull it off really well, but I will forever be salty about Bob disappearing. Will I build a Gondola Planet Coaster? Well, I suppose I did in the ski resort. Yeah, the lighting in Planet Zoo is so much nicer, and also you can see the anti-aliasing in this game is a bit iffy. It's really harsh, and it just makes the already harsh lighting stick out even more. And Planet Zoo has really great lighting and anti-aliasing, so just altogether it looks so much more easy on the eyes. Can you make it night again, because I want to see the lights? Alright, sure thing. Sorry that I'm keeping my game paused quite a bit here, by the way. I'm just a bit concerned about the frame rate when it's unpaused. Also, this is an interesting perspective, I think. Also kind of on purpose, because you've got like some benches inside this building here. But I don't think I ever really showed it off in the final video. But yeah. Hi SPR. Hold on. Let me see. Does Zoo still have the awkward paths where you can't really make a super straight path or like a square? You can easily do that by selecting Angle Snap. I have to be honest, I'm not a fan of the path system, and I've probably voiced that quite a few times. But if you push it hard enough, you can do most of the things that you eventually want to do, even if it's a bit of a long way to get there. And making straight paths and squares is absolutely fine. unless you're getting into very organic squares with smooth layouts that kind of flow into paths, it's kind of difficult to achieve that. But even then, I think eventually you can push the system to do that, like the path work over here, where a lot of these planters in the middle are really just ways to try and cover the gaps left behind by the path system, which doesn't matter too much because I really like having these planters in the middle of these path areas. Is this the end of Planet Coaster? Planet Zoo's released? I mean, I don't want to make any promises about that, but I think in the foreseeable future, I'm probably going to play Planet Zoo instead of Planet Coaster. But at the end of the day, I'm a massive theme park enthusiast, so I will definitely keep traveling around to try and ride roller coasters and visit theme parks, and it's still my main interest, so I'm probably going to come back to Planet Coaster for at least something eventually. But yeah, the pathing is very wonky, I have to agree. It's interesting actually, because I found in the last couple of days a lot of people have gone back to my Planet Coaster College video about pathing, which I suppose are a lot of people playing Planet Zoo and trying to figure out how to make this path system work. Which, yeah, that was one of my major disappointments about Planet Zoo as well, because I think the path system really kind of deserved a rework as well. From what I've heard from Frontier is that it's difficult to make it work better because of the terrain being the voxel terrain, which, fair enough. I know I said at some point that I would love to see the Jurassic World evolution paths in Planet Zoo, but if the reason that the paths don't work as well as Jurassic World evolution is to have the voxel terrain, then I do think having voxel terrain is a worthwhile sacrifice. It would just be nice if we could have both the Jurassic World evolution path style and voxel terrain. What coasters are highest on your bucket list? Oof. Well, that's really difficult because there are some coasters that would be really high on my bucket list but kind of aren't because they're just too far away and I don't see myself going there in the foreseeable future, like, well, Steel Vengeance, Fury 325 or Intimidator, things like that. But I think at least within Europe, going back to Energylandia is on my agenda. For Zadra, partly, but also for the Vekoma... is it a Firestorm which they're building? Their new generation Vekoma which they're building, anyway. But that aside, I think most of the newest interesting coasters in Europe I've kind of done at this point. I still want to go down to Portaventura to ride Shambhala. That's definitely something I need to do. But yeah, aside from that, I don't really have too many bucket list coasters. I have it on my bucket list to go back to Japan and go to Nagashima Spa Land because I gotta ride Hakuge and I just want to go to Nagashima Spa Land in general and back to Japan in general. And yeah, what else? I don't know. I don't really have too much of a bucket list, honestly. Do you follow any other planets YouTubers? And if so, who do you follow? Well, generally the people that I hang around with, so the Lady Designer, Rudy, Rinkamel, SPR, etc., Free the Bear, Sean McBeard, all of those people. And as for people that I just kind of follow, I mean, from a sort of one-way perspective, where it's just me following them, could be anyone in the community, kind of. I try to just keep my eyes open for what is being released and not really necessarily follow people, so... I just kind of check out the Discord groups, the subreddits, YouTube to see what people are putting out. So yeah, anything honestly that comes out and grabs my attention, I'll check out. We should make a group trip to Portaventura one day. Oh, that's a really good idea, yeah. Do you know any good YouTubers who will stick to Planet Coaster instead of switching to building zoos? I don't know, actually. I think a large part of the Planet Coaster community, even though the theme park hardcore enthusiasts have been switching to Planet Zoo, just even to build stuff with the same engine, but with better graphics and weather. If I could say anything, I did see that there was some person who built a roller coaster in Planet Zoo beta. I don't even know which pieces they used for it, but somebody did that. Probably they're gonna... Actually, no, they're not gonna keep playing Planet Coaster because they already did Planet Zoo. Yeah, no, I wouldn't know who's gonna stick with Planet Coaster. Yeah, somebody actually did that. That's madness. I'm not sure if we can even still look it up, and probably we're gonna lose all of the Planet Zoo beta blueprints. But yeah, I did think it was a little bit sad to build a coaster in Planet Zoo. Although it is funny. When I always try to look up what most people look up about Planet Zoo, and if you type in Planet Zoo on YouTube and type the letter C, I think one of the first recommendations you get is coaster. For some reason, a lot of people look for roller coasters in Planet Zoo, which is interesting. And honestly, I think it makes sense that Frontier didn't want to include roller coasters in Planet Zoo. As much as I am a fan of zoos that also combine theme parks, I think it would just kind of distract from the overall idea of a zoo and from the main message of the game. So honestly, I think fair enough. Although still deep down, I would love to build a combination of a zoo and a theme park as well. You know, bring it back to those Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 days. Oh, hi Rudy. Good luck recording. The Wingstyle Games keeps playing Planet Coaster. Fair enough. If you're Dutch, you can follow the Wingstyle Games for Planet Coaster videos. He's making some good content. But that's really just for the Dutch language speakers out there, I think. I am praying for Planet Coaster 2. And if Planet Coaster 2 ever does come out, I'm going to be so hyped for it. That would really be my dream game. And I think it might happen. I don't know. We'll see. Is there anything else that I need to show off here in the meantime? A night POV. Let me actually fix that real quick. Somebody asked for it, so that'll be a good thing to play in the background while I talk about stuff. Oh, hi Mike. Somebody was just asking whether anybody is going to keep playing Planet Coaster instead of switching to Planet Zoo, but I guess you guys are going to do a bro zoo thing, so... But yeah, I was just talking about how it's interesting that a lot of people from the Planet Coaster community, even though it's so theme park focused, have switched to Planet Zoo and kind of became hooked on it. But yeah, you're right, SPR, they are completely different gameplay ideas. Would you like to have animals in Planko? Sure thing. I mean, what if... okay, that was the most coaster bot what if ever. But what if, at the end of the whole Planet line, Frontier released like a Planet Everything? You know, it's a game where you can do everything. Forget about it. This is not happening. But it would be cool, you know. At the end of the day, when they've built all of these different games and they know how to tackle these different parts of it, they just release a game with theme park elements and zoo elements and water parks all in one. That would be the dream come true. That would be something that I would give a lot of money to make happen. It's not going to happen, but, you know, I don't know, wishful thinking. I'm not entirely sure where the whole Planet series is supposed to go, and I know there's a lot of speculation about Planet Water Park or Planet City or Planet whatever it is. But yeah, even though I understand why they keep everything very separated, I would love to see another game that combines these different aspects like Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 was such an insanely flexible game, and you had all of these different communities within it as well. It had the zoo elements, roller coasters, water parks, fireworks simulation, which was surprisingly amazing. Like, that game was insane. Planet Minecraft. Planet Skylines, yeah, that would be cool. I'm personally really hoping for a Planet Water Park. I know it's not quite as popular maybe as the other ideas, but... why is this train not starting? Okay, I'm getting out. I've been having this game in unpaused mode for a while. Oh, oh, it's closed? Oh, interesting. Herp-a-derp. Okay, now we should get started. Let's go. Oh, hi Jason. Yeah, I know Roller Coaster Country Soaked and Wild exists, but you know that game doesn't look as good as the Planet games. Planet Warehouse. I mean, don't know if I see that one happening, but I would also love to see a Planet Ski at some point. I think that would be feasible. Yeah, we don't have the synchronization because it's on testing mode, so the timing actually doesn't work. Speaking of which, if I'm done with this POV, I should definitely turn it on again. I mean, open it again and see if I can get the synchronization to work. The FPS is really off. It's really terrible. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, this is what the coaster looks like at night. This turn is very overbanked, but I feel like it's overbanked in that typical Vekoma mine train kind of fashion. I think everybody who's been on Colorado Adventure knows what I'm talking about. That thing sometimes slams you into the person next to you, which I think is all part of the Vekoma mine train experience, so fair enough. I'll leave that overbanked turn in there. I'll do a daytime POV after this. Thank you, Oliver. Did the budget not cover lights for the tunnel? Yeah, I guess so. I should have definitely put a light in there. I'm gonna be completely honest and say that I think I just forgot about that. A lot of this lighting placement is really just down to what the coaster looks like off-ride. This is actually my first time ever seeing the coaster at night, as in an on-ride POV at night. Yeah, it's clearly not made for this. There are some dark parts here and there. Then again, you don't want everything to be lit up with lighting, but I'll be the first to admit that the lighting job on this is a bit mediocre. Except I think for the buildings and the guest areas and some of the quote-unquote weenies. It would be cool if Planet Zoo eventually got some expansion for more fantastical animals like Zoo Tycoon did. I'm not sure if they're actually going to do that though, because it seems like the Planet series is really focused on realism, and yeah, I guess that speaks for itself. With Planet Coaster, for instance, they really go out of their way to try and make roller coasters realistic. I know us roller coaster enthusiasts have had some issues with this because it's not always 100%, but honestly, if you look at it, you know, from a general audience perspective, it is unparalleled just how realistic Planet Coaster is from a theme park management perspective. If you don't count things like No Limits, which are honest to God simulations, so I think they did a good job on that anyway. But yeah, the Planet series seems really focused on realism, so I don't think they're gonna add non-existing animals. Although it would be cool to see extinct animals, yeah. Like maybe more recently extinct animals, like, I don't know, Tasmanian tigers or dodos, things like that. Realism, yeah, sure. Realistish. Is that a neology? Neologism? Forget about it. Daytime POV time. And before I do that, let's open the ride and see if the timing is a little bit less off now. Didn't I just change the PM? Thank you. Yeah, it would not surprise me if the developer said that they're not adding extinct animals, because I suppose that's not really their thing, judging by how they've been handling the game so far. Ooh, I really like this perspective as well. Oh, too many trees in here. There we go, that's what I was looking for. This is actually a swamp tree, but I don't know, I like this thing. So what in your zoo had you most excited to build upon? What will your unique niche be? Well, I guess within the larger Planet Zoo community, I can honestly only set myself apart with... I mean, what do I set myself apart with? The only unique niche that I have is that I have a large following, honestly. But aside from that, just my general interest in architecture and different cultures, I think will be, at least for me, my biggest niche. Just going out of my way to try and make exhibits as culturally authentic as possible, I think will be really interesting. Kind of like the Bhutanese tiger exhibit or the Taiwanese exhibit. Forget about the grizzlies. For some reason that's the most popular video on YouTube, but it sucks. I mean, you make a Japanese garden. yeah, that's... maybe I'll build a Japanese garden as well. I have an inkling of a feeling that there might be some Asian scenery in the game, so... There are dodo statues in Planet Zoo? Oh, that's cool, actually. Also, I should upgrade my PC sometime soon, because I'm getting, well, worse performance on many of my builds than many of my followers, apparently, so that's something to fix. Yeah, I think aquatic exhibits are definitely going to be a must, but I think that's one of the things which they've kept from the main game to make it a DLC later on. Alright, SPR, enjoy your late Spanish dinner. Well, it's 9:15. It's not even too late for Spanish standards, I guess. Can I watch the stream if you're not live anymore? Yep, I'll be keeping this on my channel. Is there anything else that I still wanted to talk about? Let me get my notes again. And yeah, I'm keeping physical notes of this because I don't know why, but having a pen in my hand and physically writing stuff down just is still the most satisfying. No, sorry, I won't be building a gondola here. I'm not going to respond to that question about collabs. Or we're thinking about it. Perhaps we might. Maybe. Wait, I just responded to the question. Well, there goes that promise. How about blending your park with the skybox landscape background? Okay, we got the same answer from Lady. Alright, nice. We're too much on one line here. That's dangerous. But yeah, I don't know. There's not much that you can blend into that skybox background. In fact, I'm not really a huge fan of it. Although sometimes I think it works well. Like in some shots, these mountains really do fit the theme of Jägerhorn. Like this, for instance, just having those mountains in the back does help. But yeah, I didn't really think about that too much. I like to think of my builds as just little enclosed areas. And if I would have, actually cared to put in the effort, I would have probably put in some fake clouds on the screenshots or videos. I don't remember J-Stu, but I do remember seeing you here on YouTube with the name Sunder Plays Games. Do you have time for a collab on the level of KB? Yeah, that is a big question. Especially because I'm very busy with Parkitect. I know it doesn't seem like it, but Parkitect has been demanding a lot of my time. And those scenario videos take a lot of time to make. So, yeah, that's something. And also I want to get back into City Skylines as well at the same time. And I have to say, I'm actually really happy with the fact that Parkitect has been very well received, because I was very afraid that people would be kind of disappointed by the fact that I'd be playing a much less known game, I suppose, and let alone actually watch it. But people have been really excited about it and have been asking me a lot to make more Parkitect videos, so honestly, I'm really happy about that. But yeah, I do want to keep that up. Let me read through a bit more comments here. There's a trick to making you build underwater. I actually remember that Pixelated, who's absolutely amazing at making dark rides in this game, they're so cool, but he found out a way to make that work, because in his Dream Machine coaster, well, it's hard to call it a coaster, it's more like an experience. It's not even much of a dark ride, it just kind of makes really cool cinematic experiences in the game using coasters. But yeah, in his Dream Machine video, there's a moment where you're in this completely black space and there's water below you and above you. Apparently you can just kind of stack water in this game. I've actually never tried this. Let me try this real quick. But yeah, he also apparently just found a way to add a roller coaster track in there, so that worked. So I'm gonna add water here and here. Oh yeah, there you go. Nice. That's so weird. Wow. That's very trippy. Alright, nice. So yeah, water is really just a single translucent texture, and it doesn't even affect the texture underneath it. Which I will say is a little bit disappointing. I still think that water in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 looks a bit better than this one. But then on Planet Zoo, the water is much better than in Planet Coaster. Wow, Mike, you're really asking Jason a lot of questions here. What are my thoughts on Lil Kleine? I mean, sure, he's not the most patrician music out there, but it's good for what it is. I'm not gonna hate on Lil Kleine just for making the lowest common denominator music, because I think he is good at it. And let's be honest, Drank and Drugs is genius. But yeah, kind of relating to that discussion, I do find it interesting, to the discussion that Mike and Jason are having in the comments at the moment. I do find it interesting that a lot of people who view me don't seem to have Planet Coaster, or have it but don't really play it. And something that I've always sort of struggled with is, you know, why people would even watch my videos, because all that my videos really are is kind of flexing. I know that Bear was joking about this earlier, but there really isn't much of a point to it otherwise. Just kind of, I'm doing what most people do in Planet Coaster, I just show it off. But aside from that, I don't think YouTubers are necessarily interesting in any way. So yeah, no, I've always kind of struggled with the idea of why people would watch my stuff. Apparently a lot of people just find it really relaxing to see things getting built, and I think this is also just my final answer to this question, and something that I relate to as well. It's just satisfying to watch a video where something gets done, where there's an end result at the end, there's just a creative process going on. I think this is why cooking videos are so addicting, even if you can't eat it yourself. It's really just cool to see all of the raw ingredients being used to turn it into something else. Just the whole like creative process is interesting to see it happen. And I guess it's kind of therapeutic, you know, it's not like people are watching my videos for comedic value or education. Although I guess maybe to a certain extent you could, for at least some of my videos where I talk with a little bit of knowledge about something, even though most of it is just very amateurish. But yeah, I've always been interested in that. And to be honest, I can relate to it, at least in a sense that I grew up fascinated by Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 videos. I would always watch all of these videos on YouTube where people were showcasing roller coasters, so I totally get, you know, that people feel this way. I just always wonder, what is it that makes people click on these videos, that makes people watch these things, makes people come back for it? Because, I don't know, it's not as clear cut what people watch it for, as opposed to comedy or entertainment or education. Inspiration, oh yeah, that can definitely also be a thing, that's fair. I know a lot of people build stuff inspired by my stuff. I definitely notice it every now and then on the Steam Workshop or on YouTube. So yeah, fair enough. That's a good point. Oh, and yes. Okay, so you can actually see now that I changed the friction and I reset the coaster, the synchronization is working again. So for some reason that was an issue in the friction setting and it didn't save properly, I guess. Although that is slightly off. Maybe I should reset it to 1. Let me see. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have switched it. Whatever the case. It's not always easy to get the synchronization right. Why is it closed? What? Oh, it's just because I changed the friction. Okay, of course. Would you ever stream Parktext like a sandbox? I have to be honest, I don't really like streaming while I'm building stuff because I'm really bad at streaming and building at the same time. It just kind of outs me for not being as good a player at these games as I like to be in videos, because in videos I can cut in time lapses, I can cut out the stuff where I suck at things, or I can cut out the parts where I built something that doesn't look good. So, plus I can speed up the process in general because I'm a really slow builder. So these videos are really an idealized reflection of what my general process playing these games is like. So no, I don't think it translates too well to streaming because I'm just not good at it, and I don't think I'm good enough at the game to do it. Besides, these games don't really work well as streaming games in general, I think. And well, I say this as a person having watched a lot of streams of these kinds of games, but it's just such a slow thing that live streams of these games don't really amount to much, and you have to watch a whole live stream to actually see something being done, as opposed to a live stream where somebody plays a platformer or an online game where there's always something going on. So honestly, I have to say I don't think I'll ever do it, but I would like to try doing a sandbox park when I'm done with the campaigns. But also I have to admit, I'll probably be done with the campaigns in Parktext in the year 3000. It's gonna take quite a while. Adventure Dome, my Musketon squared on Roller Coaster 3 was amazing, yeah. Musketon, however you pronounce his name, was really great. Personally, I actually like watching Let's Plays of games that I know I won't buy, but I enjoy Let's Plays of narrative games, like The Last of Us, just to enjoy the narrative of the game without having to deal with gameplay, because I'm really, really bad at video games. Like, give me any shooter and I will definitely lose to everything. So for me, they are a way of experiencing the cinematic aspect of games that I'm not really good enough to play. And I like watching horror games as well, because I love horror games, but I'm also a total wuss, so I like to watch people play horror games. I was watching PewDiePie right away. Like, when he started becoming big in Amnesia, I was all over that. But nowadays I like John Wolf, for instance, who plays a lot of indie horror games. Yeah, I had to mute Ballcut here. Do I prefer Planet Zoo or Planet Coaster? It's really too early to answer that question, I think. Yeah, Amnesia is crazy. God, I've only played a couple of horror games, and I'm actually, I don't know, I'm not the worst at it, but I'm definitely not as comfortable as I'd like to be, so I just prefer watching other people play through them. Not sure what I think is the scariest game. Yeah, I haven't even played that many horror games. I probably should. At least a bit more. I know I've actually played PT, and that was an experience. I could not get far in that. Like, I noped out of that game after a few jump scares. It's a shame that Silent Hill never actually came to be. Hi Noise Bomb. Yeah, I'm sorry you're a bit late indeed. I'm thinking about closing the stream sometime soon. If there's anything you still want me to show off in Jägerhorn, drop it now, because I'm probably not gonna come back to this thing anytime soon. Some other interesting bits that I actually haven't really shown off much or talked about is the Souvenir Building here, which I think is interesting because it looks like a tiny building, but supposedly it's actually quite a large building at the back of it. The entrance, which sucks and is actually way too hidden. But at least it has one of these Tyrolean bell towers, which I thought I made one in Planet Coaster, then I forgot where I put it, and then I remembered that it was in Jägerhorn next to the entrance here. And these little roof covers, which are totally not based on the ones of Symbolica and the Efteling. Oh, lady, don't worry about being a moderator in this chat. I just kind of moderated you. I just kind of made you moderator because I was like, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm sorry, Maverick. You're a bit late to the party. What are some other... I just kind of want to show off some stuff that I haven't really had the opportunity to talk about in videos as well, just to get that over with. The Lookout Tower is interesting, I guess. This is one of my least inspired builds in Planet Coast. Like, this is the kind of thing that I build when I'm not really into the game, but have to put out something. Like, I hadn't played the game for a few months when I built this, and I was just like, oh, bugger it. Let's just build something. It's not great, not terrible. It works out in the context of the park, but it's definitely one of the lamest things. But at least it gives you something to look at, something like a visual anchor point in this corner of the park. This bridge, by the way, I have to say, didn't show it off as much in video, but this bridge took hours to build. Just this whole annoying curving thing with this wood trying to curve along with the track, and I had to like try to make it seamless. I am never doing anything like this again. God, that was the worst. Let's pitch this coaster to GCI. I would pitch it to Vekoma if I had to pitch it to somebody. But yeah, I'm happy with the bridge in the end. It does look pretty cool. And just this pond is really important to me because it's just such a major sightline as well. As is, I guess we should actually walk through some guest areas because I haven't really had any walkthroughs through the park, which I know the Bro Coaster guys like to do this. For some reason, I don't do this nearly enough. I do this when I play the game, but I don't do it on videos. But yeah, we got a queue here. Not too interesting. There's not even anybody in the queue. And then you just kind of go up a hill here. Very laggy. Sorry about that. And then the queue line here. Here's when the queue line starts getting interesting, I think. We've got this bridge here with an overview of a sick airtime hill that does not belong on a mine train. Like, you get yeeted out of your seat on this one. There you go. It's actually not that extreme, but for a mine train it is. You're definitely gonna get quite a whip there in the back seat. So talking horror games, your next stream is Resident Evil? Definitely not. Definitely not. Also, you have a really interesting view of the lift hills here, because even though the coaster is testing right now, so you can't see it being synchronized. Actually, should open it. They should be able to synchronize here, and then when you're standing here, you just get that view in the distance. I like this view, and the final bit of curve going around the queue. There's a little cover here, and then there's a bunch of detailing here, which you don't even much notice unless you actually walk here. I had to try and put in some very obvious fences here to get people to walk around these wooden posts, because otherwise they clip through it. And actually, as far as I remember, it kind of works. And I made an interior for the station as well, which I also didn't film anything. But yeah, this is new. It's not really great, it's very basic, and I really had to stick to the walls because the entire building is as large as the station platform in Planet Coaster, so I didn't have much space to work with. But there's very, very basic interior parts here. I had to make the ceiling very low because, as you know, the roof is entirely made out of custom pieces. I don't know if I can get on the roof. Okay, forget about that. But yeah, the entire roof is custom made, so on the inside it's a big old mess. So I just had to cover all of that up. Wait, can I not cross the coaster track? Okay, I'll cross here. Thanks. And then we step back outside and you have this view, which I think also looks pretty cool. And this little exit path, and then you wind up back outside. I love how textural the Dutch players make their wooden buildings. I don't know if that's anything to do with Dutchness, but perhaps. I don't know. I did enjoy working with textures a lot for this build, just trying to open all of the wooden pieces in Planet Coaster and see which textures I like most. And the station building is probably my favorite building I've ever built in the game. Trying to get a bit of a better view here. God. But yeah, I'm really happy with this building. It feels like the balance is just right. There's some funky spire things all over the building, which is a bit over the top, but it was generally inspired by this sort of Efteling style mixed with Swiss chalet style. And then sort of similar, I guess, there's the transfer track building over there in the distance. Which doesn't make much sense as a transfer track building because it doesn't actually have an employee path going there. So the employees have to walk over the coaster track to actually get there. Not great, but I liked the building too much to try and actually add a realistic employee section to it. So yeah, you can see that I went for design over function here. The modernists are gonna be very angry at this one, but yeah, sorry, I'm a radical traditionalist. Can't change it. What does the name Jägerhorn come from, and what does it mean? Well, in the lore of Jägerhorn, Jägerhorn is actually the name of this whole themed area, and the coaster specifically is called the Jägerhorn Mountain Train. Because I noticed that a lot of mine trains by Disney have really long and verbose names, especially the Big Grizzly Runaway Mountain mine carts, Big Grizzly Runaway mine carts. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, the coaster itself has a long and verbose name of Jägerhorn Mountain Train, which is based on Jägerhorn, which is the name of this hypothetical mountain here, which just means the hunter's peak, generally translated. Jäger is German for hunter, and horn is a German word for peak of a mountain. Is it synchronized now? I'm not entirely sure. Oh well, we can see in a bit. I think also the flat ride is a bit underappreciated by me, at least, because I didn't really show it off in the final video, but I'm really happy with this flat ride skin as well. The detailing on it is honestly pretty simple and straightforward, but I think it works out well with a spire that is made out of jungle adventure pieces, so I didn't even have to put so much time and effort into that one. Hey Technic. The mechanic looks sad. Oh. Well, I don't know, I can imagine that some of my staff would be very sad here. Okay, yeah, no, fair enough. This building has a lot of pieces, but in terms of like overall layout and setup, it's quite simple. Although I do like the way that it works together with the exit path. Wait, does that have a pillar in the middle of it? Wow. Okay, you guys didn't see that. I never messed up on that pillar placement. But yeah, I just like this overall perspective from here as well. I just always try to make things based on certain perspectives, especially of course where you would be walking as a guest in the park. Like the same goes for this space over here. Everything's just kind of set up to give an overall overview of this section of the park. And I think this Swiss chalet style building works quite well from this perspective as well. So I'm pretty happy with that. Only thing that isn't quite as nice, I think, is this weird pavilion for the queue of the flat ride. Speaking of which, the flat ride just has a very detailed and over-the-top queue for just a simple flat ride, because you have this cattle pen here, then a whole garden walkthrough with flowers and stuff, and a bridge over a pond, which is a bit over the top for a simple flat ride, not gonna lie. There should be a cart at the exit with free Jägermeister. I love Jägermeister, god. And yeah, this is just a general looky building. A building to look at stuff from, which people don't do because there's nothing to do here, so the guests in the game don't go here. But personally, I thought of this space as, you know, the kind of place where you can sit down, have a sandwich, or, you know, either something you bought in the park or something you bring with you when you're a cheapskate like me, and have a view of the coaster. Because not enough parks do this enough. There's sometimes really a lack of bench space in theme parks. I don't think there's such a thing as too many benches. So, although you do gonna make some nice, you do have to make some nice places for it. Like here as well, for instance, I think you can sit down and have a look at the coaster, have it go around and do stuff. Can you build buildings as detailed as Planko? Yes, definitely. Although, yeah, pretty much. I don't think anything will hold you back in Planet Zoo compared to Planet Coaster. Ooh. Sorry, I was just looking at this and I'm like, why did I not have a section from this perspective in the video? This looks cool. Alright. Well, that is the main street. And here's a very wide path. This path is very wide because it's generally the entrance path where you would go into this themed area from. And again, trying to kind of make sense of where sightlines should be and what you can view the park from. People sitting don't spend money. That is fair, but neither do people riding roller coasters. I feel like the pieces are more consistent in Zoo compared to coasters, since with Zoo they have years of knowing how players build. Yeah, that's also fair. I think in Planet Coaster you could notice that pieces were getting better and more detailed, and to some degree also more flexible as the game developed. Like the pieces in Alpha were really limited, and we really kind of had to push them in strange directions to make them work for different themes. They definitely got better at that throughout the years, I think. What are the picnic umbrellas from? Let me check that out. Wait, where? Oh, those are in front of the building, aren't they? Oh yeah. They are Picnic Umbrella 1. Somewhere in scenery, I think. Zeg eens iets in het Nederlands? Well, there you go. Yeah, these are... No, wait, this is a different umbrella, but you get the picture. There are... Wait, which umbrella is that? Ah, this is the one. Alright. Yeah, just a little bit of decoration in front of the Chief Beef building. This is still my favorite perspective of the whole build. We are not going to do that. Some angles of this park feel very piratey. Are you serious? I wanted to give a shout out to Marcel Vos because he said Amsterdam Time in a tweet announcing one of his live streams, and I felt like that was a nicer way to say CST, so... We need a koala zoo park in the future. Duly noted. Yeah, I put some cheesy music in this playlist. But I think it fits the theme of the coaster. What else? I think I've given a pretty decent picture of the park by now. Hell, I've been spending almost 2 hours just showing stuff and talking about stuff. That is way more than I expected beforehand anyway. So, yep, I'm gonna get out of Tachitcan. That was pretty much the entire park, I think. Yep. Yeah, it is really small at the end of the day. So I'm gonna resume and go back to my original location. I'll end the stream here. But yeah, I enjoyed having a look at Jägerhorn. I promised a day on ride, so I'll actually do that while I end the stream. That sounds like a good idea. Let's unpause it here. It reminds you of Matterhorn. I think that was definitely at least part of the experience. I think a lot of the mine train coasters in general were probably inspired by what Matterhorn did. I did always refuse to make a pirate-themed anything. Folvara was definitely not Steam Pirates. Although I guess it could be. It's like a flying fortress, and airships are kind of piratey. At least if Treasure Island is to be believed. But yeah, actually, somebody asked a bit earlier in the live stream what my inspiration for this was, and I forgot to answer that question. But just in general, it's the Disney Mine Train coasters, Seven Dwarfs, Big Thunder Mountain, Big Grizzly Runaway Mine Trains, Mine Carts. Damn it, I still messed it up. Those are all just really amazing coasters, some of my favorite themed coasters out there, and they were generally just the inspiration for this coaster. Interestingly enough, if you look at all of those coasters, they do obviously look very different from this. And in terms of how I built the terrain and everything around the coaster, I was actually mostly inspired by model train tracks. Like, I really loved the aesthetic of miniature train models. Just the way that the rockwork and the foliage, etc. was built around it. So that was actually my main inspiration for how I themed this coaster. I ended up just looking at many pictures of model trains and saving that all in a giant inspiration folder, and that's where a lot of the inspiration for this coaster came from. Yeah, sorry about the low FPS. If you want to have a decent actual POV, definitely check out the cinematic video. This coaster is definitely more intense than the Disney mine trains, you're right. I personally really like a slightly intense mine train. I'm a really big fan of Colorado Adventure at Fantasialand, which has some airtime if you sit in the back. So I did make this coaster to be a bit more intense, especially the second half, like this over here. This hill has a ton of airtime. There's some sustained airtime, twisted airtime on that hill. So yeah, it's quite intense for a mine train coaster, but I think it's not too intense. Colorado Adventure hurts, yeah, it definitely does. I won't deny that, but I love it. No, we are not putting shin guard restraints on this. I absolutely hate them. Yeah, fun fact actually. Colorado Adventure is the only mine train that I've been on, because I've actually never been to Disneyland Paris. At least I went there once when I was 4, so I wasn't old enough to ride any of the actual things. So, and yeah, the Disney park that I have been to, which is in Tokyo, doesn't have a mine train. I guess I could have been to Disneyland in Tokyo, but I was so interested in Disney Sea that I just ended up going there again instead of visiting the other park. So yeah, I definitely need to up my mine train coaster credit count, but that's something I'll work on in the future. I would love to ride Big Grizzly mine carts actually. Definitely want to go to Hong Kong one day if China is done trying to take it over. Have I been to any Belgian theme parks? I've been to Bobbejaanland and Walibi. And I have to say, Bobbejaanland has a lot of nostalgic value to me because I went there when I was younger, and Revolution was my favorite coaster, I suppose, when I didn't dare to ride coasters. It was like, it scared the hell out of me when I was younger, but it was probably the actually most intense coaster I rode when I was younger. And then by the time I got over my fear of roller coasters when I was like 19, I think, I rode Revolution again, and I still love it. It's so good. So yeah, that has a bunch of nostalgic value for me, but it kind of sucks nowadays. My favorite would definitely be Walibi. Psyche Underground is amazing. I'm from the Netherlands, but I'm living in Brussels. Hold up. Sorry, I'll come to your question, Technic. Any tips on how to start and design a dark ride? Oh, that's actually a really difficult question for me. I rarely make dark rides. You might have noticed that there are no dark rides on my channel, so I don't know too much about how to do a dark ride, really. But track first, I think. And try to keep in mind what you want to do around the track, and then build up scenery around it. But you absolutely have to get the track in first, because I think you need to be able to tell from the POV what the ride is going to look like as you build it. Don't say anything in favor of democracy on this stream. Well, oh god, no, I already got in some weird conversations about this on my Chinese Planet Zoo video. But, I mean, obviously, I'm pro Hong Kong. I mean, I'm from a democratic country. It's just ridiculous what's going on there. But at the same time, I don't think it would deter me from going to Hong Kong. As far as I've heard from people, the situation for foreigners coming there is still fine. I just hope that the Hong Kongers themselves are not losing their democratic freedom. What made you move to Belgium, and how do you survive the roads? Well, what made me move was just the specific study that I'm interested in. Also, the tuition fees are lower. I pay about half the tuition fees I do here as I do for the Netherlands. Actually, monetarily, it's a bit of a gain for me that I've moved to Belgium. I'm kind of making use of Belgium. That's not great, actually. But I also try to promote it, because I think Belgium is a much nicer country than most Dutch people give it credit for. The roads are not even that bad until you go into some parts of Wallonia. But yeah, I really like it here. Haven't been to Plopsaland. I wanted to go there recently, but then my roommate couldn't go, and the plans never actually ended up happening. But I would love to go there sometime soon. I tried actually recently to go back to an old dark ride that I was working on in Planet Coaster. I was actually working on a dark ride, but I lost a lot of progress because some of the pieces that I used to build it were Team Maker's Toolkit pieces, and when I opened the park, the game told me that some pieces were missing, and apparently they must have been taken from the workshop or something, because a bunch of floor pieces just disappeared, and now the whole ride looks really weird. So I'm not really motivated to finish that, honestly. It is effectively Italy of the North. Yeah, it has really good food. I haven't been to Bellevard, actually. Oh yeah, and German roads are bad. Not all of them, but some parts of the Autobahn are really, really terrible. Yeah, and at least Wallonia doesn't have traffic jams. But then again, I was recently... recently some Flemish people in class were showing like where they lived, and y'all Flemish people have giant houses, and everybody's just kind of scattered throughout the country. There's so much urban sprawl, so that just kind of makes the whole of Flanders really congested and kind of messy and ugly. But at the same time, everybody has a beautiful house, so there's a bit of a trade-off there. A trade-off that I think is not worth it, but you know, that's the trade-off you guys made, I suppose. Have I tried Rimworld? I've actually heard of it, but I haven't tried it. I have to be honest, I'm really bad at starting new games. I just really tend to stick to a few games that I do play. Right. I wanted to end the stream a while ago, but just... I don't know, I want to round it up. I want to respond to some of the last questions and comments. Flanders, the whole Belgium... Well, no, to be honest, Flanders is a lot more urban sprawly than Wallonia. You can definitely already tell if you look on Google Maps. Anyway, I'm sorry, but I'm really gonna have to end the stream here. This will be it for Jägerhorn from me. But of course, you can download it on the Steam Workshop as well. I'll put the link in the description when the video of this live stream goes live. So if you want to check out the coaster for yourself and do some on-rides with a better frame rate than I can get, then by all means, download it and check it out, see if you can run it. And yeah, that'll be it for Jägerhorn. I really enjoyed building this thing. It's definitely my proudest build in Planet Coaster, I think. But there is a time to move on, and now especially with Planet Zoo around the corner. I'm sorry guys, but I gotta give that Planet Zoo thing a try. So, thanks for coming to the stream everybody, and thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next Planet Coaster video, Planet Zoo video, Parktech video, City Skylines video, whatever it is. Hopefully I'll see you next time I'm doing something creative again. Bye guys!